Hello everyone, welcome back to another Project Gladiator Wednesday update. Today I'll be covering the weather for the rest of the week of January 18th until January 21st. I am recording this a day late. This is a Thursday. I'm sorry for missing yesterday, but I'm going to make up for it by posting a video for today. So starting off with the severe weather outlooks that we currently have issued and the possibility of severe thunderstorms for the rest of this week. Overall, we aren't really expecting to see all that much of a risk for severe thunderstorms until next week. However, we do have at least one area issued for some general thunderstorms for southern Florida. We may have a couple or two issued for day 2 to day 3, but overall we don't have anything issued. Then for day 4 to day 8 outlook, we currently don't have anything issued, and all days currently do say predictability too low, so we do have the possibility of severe thunderstorms, or at least weak severe thunderstorms, but models aren't trending enough to really set it in stone about where and how intense our severe thunderstorms should be, so we may have to watch for the possibility of severe thunderstorms in the upcoming days. Taking a look at our WPC outlook, starting off with our excessive rainfall forecast, we are expected to see the probability for flash flooding for a very good portion of the rest of the week into next week, as we are expected to see constant trough advection out of the Pacific Ocean and almost constant rainfall across the Pacific coast. And for today, we do have a marginal threat for coastal Washington. And then we also do have a marginal threat for just to the north of the San Francisco Bay for tomorrow. And then for day 3 outlook, this is where things really start ramping up, as we do have a marginal threat for just north of the San Francisco Bay into southern Oregon, as well as potentially more inland. And then for day 4 outlook, we do have a slight risk for almost the entire coast of California into southern Oregon. Then we also do have a marginal threat for southern Texas. This is when we are expected to see moisture return in moisture recovery from the second cold blast that we are expected to see out of the Arctic. So we are expecting to see quite a bit of rainfall across southern Texas on day 4. Then for day 5, we do have a slight risk for southern Texas, southeastern Texas into parts of Louisiana, as well as a slight risk for southern California there. So we are expected to see quite a bit of rainfall, especially along the Pacific coast, and then towards the end of this week, we are expected to see a ton of rainfall for the southern plains out of Gulf of Mexico for Texas into Louisiana. And then for our winter weather outlooks, we are expected to see around 2 the lesser winter storms. They aren't really expected to be all that significant, but they still could lead to hazards, and I'll get into those winter storms later on in this forecast. However, again, they are going to be a little bit more on the weaker side, but they still are expected to bring quite a bit of snowfall and potentially some hazards to the roads. For today, we aren't really expected to see all that much as far as snowfall. We are expected to see that winter storm impact the northern central plains into some parts of the Midwest. But overall, we aren't really expected to see a ton of snow because we don't have anything issued as far as heavy snow. But we are expected to see continuous snowfall coming off the Great Lakes. We are expected to continue to see lake effect snow, even though we already have an insane amount of snow in the immediate coastal areas of the Great Lakes, and we are expected to continue to see that build. Then for day 2 outlook, we are expected to see that winter storm push off into the Ohio River Valley and into some of the New England corridor, as well as still continue to see lake effect snow coming off the Great Lakes. And then for day 3 outlook, we are expected to see again some lake effect snow, but it is expected to weaken down substantially, and we are expected to see potentially some heavy snow for some of the more mountainous regions in eastern California. And then for our day 4 outlook, which is Sunday, we are expected to see quite a bit of spotty snow showers across the Rocky Mountains here. Taking a look at our weather models, starting off with our 500 millibars in our Jetstream pattern like we usually do. For the rest of the week, we aren't really expected to see anything too crazy, but you can notice this extremely broad jet of air coming out of the Pacific Northwest and exiting into the Atlantic Ocean. And we do have a couple smaller short waves here. The one that's further to the east is a little bit harder to see, but you can kind of see it here embedded in the flow, as well as this surface low. And then we also do have the more prominent one further to the north, as well as this surface low. So those are going to be the two primary driving things for those winter storms that we are expected to see. And again, we are expected to see quite a bit of rainfall across the Dixie states, and a little bit more of an icy, wintry mix across the Tennessee region, as we do see a lot of moisture being pulled out of the Gulf of Mexico by that surface low. But overall, we aren't really expected to see all that much of a risk for severe thunderstorms with that, as the moisture return isn't expected to be all that good, or all that good in quality, I should say. So overall, we aren't really expected to see all that much of a risk for severe thunderstorms with that surface low. But again, we could see quite a bit of rainfall across the Dixie states, and wintry icy mixed. And then again, we should see quite a bit of snowfall through the northern Central Plains and into the Midwest, and then eventually into the Ohio River Valley and New England corridor with these two systems. And then again, as mentioned previously, we are expected to see quite a bit of frontal systems and quite a bit of low pressure systems that are going to be impacting the Pacific Northwest coast and the Pacific coast, and that is going to be leading to all of that rainfall and the risk for flash flooding. Taking a look at our composite reflectivity, I'm going to be going over the when and where you should be able to see our rain showers and our snow showers, as well as the potential for ice. I'm not going to be focusing all that much across the Pacific coast, because we are expected to see almost constant rainfall across the Pacific coast. So I'm not really going to be going too in depth on the timing for that, but I will go into the timing for our snow showers and our rain showers and the potential for some ice. For today, we are expected to see quite a bit of snowfall across the northern Central Plains and into the Midwest, as we do see that that weaker snowstorm associated with that surface low and that embedded shortwave trough across the northern Central Plains and into the Midwest. And then we are expected to see quite a bit of snowfall, as well as the potential for some ice and quite a bit of rainfall across the Dixie states and the Tennessee region into Kentucky today as well, and potentially into the 19th. But around the 19th, it does look like we are expected to see that clear out of the region and move across Appalachia. But again, you can see quite a bit of freezing rain mixed in there, as the transition between snow and rain can be a little bit iffy, and does mean there may be a little bit of a warm layer in place between the surface and the upper levels, which is going to allow the rain to melt and then freeze after it hits the ground, leading to quite a bit of ice across the region. So we will have to watch for the possibility of ice across the Tennessee region, as that may lead to quite a bit of hazards, but I will be going more in depth on the ice risk for that region. And then into the 19th, we are expected to see those two systems combine and impact a lot of the eastern seaboard across the New England corridor, across portions of Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, as well as the Ohio River Valley across Ohio and Indiana. And then into the 20th, we are expected to see that clear out into the Atlantic, but we are expected to continue to see some lake effect snow. But around Sunday, models are indicating that we should see that lake effect snow really lighten up quite a bit, as we don't really have all that much precipitation being indicated by models on Sunday as far as lake effect snow. But again, we are expected to see constant rainfall out of the Pacific Ocean and across the Pacific coastal regions. Taking a look at our total snowfall, we can take a look at how much snowfall we are expected to see with these two systems. However, keep in mind I am using the GFS model, so it may exaggerate some things a little bit, as well as potentially make it a little bit less than what it is really expected. So things are expected to potentially vary with GFS models, so definitely keep that in mind as we do take a look at how much snowfall we are expected to see. For the first winter storm that we are expected to see impact the northern central plains and into the Midwest, we aren't really expected to see all that much snowfall, but we may potentially see an inch to potentially 2 inches of snowfall across portions of Nebraska, Iowa, and into Illinois. But overall, we aren't really expected to see anything too crazy as far as snowfall, and overall, it should generally stay less than 4 inches. So that's why we don't have anything issued as far as heavy snowfall on our WPC outlooks, because it is expected to be less than 4 inches. But then you can also see the when it does combine with that first winter storm, as well as the winter storm that's going to be further downstream of the broader trough, we are expected to see quite a bit of snowfall with this, with potentially 4 inches to potentially 6 to potentially 10 inches along the ridgeline of the Appalachian Mountains in West Virginia, which overall isn't really all that confusing, because if you do think about it, if our snowstorms are a little bit more closer to the surface, they aren't really going to be able to get around the Appalachian Mountains, so they are going to just kind of be stopped by the Appalachian Mountains and just accumulate along the ridgeline of the Appalachian Mountains. So overall, that isn't really too confusing, so we may see quite a bit of snowfall along that ridgeline there. But overall, generally, as far as widespread snowfall goes, we are expected to see snowfall totals that are probably going to be ranging anywhere from 4 to 3 inches across the broader area, with some areas maybe seeing 5 to 6 inches. But across the Tennessee region, maybe a little bit more tougher, because the snowfall does look like it's going to be a little bit more towards the north. But because of how cold it is, I'm currently living in Tennessee, and we still have all the snowfall that we got earlier on in this week, and it is still quite a lot. We did get like 8 or 9 inches, and that is expected to stick around until it does warm up. But because of that winter blast, that Arctic and winter blast that we saw out of the north earlier this week, all that snow is expected to stick around. And we may even have it added on to, but it also may just be coated with a layer of ice. With a lot of the ice that we may see. But overall, we may see quite a bit of snowfall for a lot of the Ohio River Valley across Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, West Virginia, as well as Pennsylvania. But overall, it doesn't really look like we are expected to see a whole lot of snowfall. Forget about the lake effect snow as of right now. It doesn't really look like we are expected to see a lot of snowfall across the New England corridor or the eastern seaboard associated with these two winter storms. But you can see that we are expected to have quite a bit of snowfall immediately east of the Great Lakes associated with all that lake effect snow. Taking a look at our total ice accretion and how much ice we may see with a lot of that freezing rain. First, let me give you a brief explanation on why we do see ice between the transition of rain and snow. It's because we do have a little bit more of a warm layer between the surface and the ground level, which I'm going to be using pink for the surface level where the ground is. But we do have a little bit more of a warm layer between the upper levels in the surface layer. So when snow falls into that warm layer, it will melt, and then when it falls into the cold layer at the surface, it will fall down as rain. But because of how cold it is at the surface, it will eventually freeze. So that's how we get ice. If we didn't have that warm layer, it would just fall down as snow. But because we do have that warm layer in place between the transition of rain and snow, we are expected to see quite a bit of ice across the region. And the reason why we are expected to be concerned about ice is because of the fact that it is expected to make roads potentially slippery, potentially lead to quite a bit of travel impacts. I do know in my county, my school was supposed to be canceled up until today. I was supposed to be going to school today until yesterday, when they did extend how long we were off for because of all this ice until next week. So again, we are expected to see quite a bit of ice that may lead to travel hazards such as slippery roads, as well as the potential for some business and school closures. Taking a look at our temperatures and how we are expected to see our temperatures drop across the vast majority of the United States with a second Arctic blast later this week. Again, we are expected to see a ton of extremely cold air come out of the north again. We did have this happen earlier this week, but we are expected to see it happen again with temperatures that could be getting below zero and into the negatives across a very good portion of the northern central plains into potentially the central plains and across the Midwest. And these temperatures may potentially be pretty dangerous, as frostbite is definitely going to be very real risk with this. And as well as any snow that may be across this area, that snow isn't going to melt whatsoever because of how cold it is expected to be. And again, a danger to yourself as well, as frostbite again is a very real risk with how cold it is expected to be with this system in this Arctic blast. Around Sunday, we are expected to see quite a bit of cold air, mostly across the Midwest, but it is expected to warm up just a little bit across the north, but it is still going to be way down below freezing. And into the early next week, into the 22nd, we are expected to see some temperature recovery with temperatures that may be getting into the 60s across a very large portion of the Gulf Coast. And you can see how much it does warm up across the Central Plains and across and even into the Midwest, where it may potentially be getting above freezing, but it is expected to be hovering probably around freezing, but it may also be getting above freezing as well in some places. And because of the fact that it is expected to be heating up along some of the more coastal regions across the Gulf, that does mean that we are expected to see the potential for moisture return with this as well, and the potential for instability to return, and it may be priming the atmosphere for the potential of severe thunderstorms early next week. So we will have to watch that, and it does look like we may have a little bit of a cold front develop across the Mississippi River Valley with some of these models that may be leading to the potential for some severe thunderstorms early next week. Taking a look at our dew points and overall what we are expected to see for the potential for our instability and the risk for severe thunderstorms, especially with our moisture return into early next week. Again, because of that cold blast, we aren't really expected to see all that much of a risk for severe thunderstorms. There's a lot of whatever instability may be present along the Gulf Coast states with that weak moisture return before this cold blast does happen. We aren't really expected to see all that much of a risk for severe thunderstorms because, again, all that instability is going to be cleared out into the Gulf of Mexico and into the Atlantic Ocean. However, again, as I mentioned previously, we are expected to see our moisture and heat return quite quickly, which, again, does beg the question for how good is our quality of moisture expected to be across a lot of the regions that moisture is expected to be returning to across the southern U.S., because of the timing between the cold blast and how quickly our moisture returned just after that cold blast. Again, that is leading to some concern and uncertainty about how good the quality of our moisture return is expected to be. So we will have to watch that into early next week for the risk for severe thunderstorms. But overall, our moisture does look pretty good and pretty ample for quite a bit of instability across a lot of the southeast here. Especially on the 25th, where we may have a little bit of a cold front feature developing, and dew points that may be getting into the upper and mid 60s, potentially into the low 70s. So again, we're going to have to watch that for whatever instability we may have develop across the southeast. But again, there may be some uncertainty with the quality of our moisture return. We can also take a look at our supercell composite for the potential for severe thunderstorms. Basically, what this does is it combines our everything in the environment, mostly temperatures, dew points, instability, as well as shear for the potential for severe thunderstorms across a region. And again, as mentioned previously, we aren't really expected to see all that much of a risk for severe thunderstorms. However, early next week, as we do have that moisture return quite quickly to the southern southeastern United States, we do have the probability for severe thunderstorms, as we are expected to see quite a bit of moisture as well as heat across the region, leading to some instability, and we do have supercell composites to back up that risk as well for the potential for severe thunderstorms across the Dixie states mainly. But overall, we will have to watch this because this is still pretty far out. And then finally, to close, we can take a look at how much rainfall we are expected to see with our total precipitation models. However, keep in mind that this does combine precipitation as a whole, so it does take into account snow, rain, and freezing rain. So overall, we will have to watch out for some of these areas where it may be a little bit more snowfall than rainfall, but overall, I'm primarily looking at how much rainfall we are expected to see along the Pacific coast. So by Sunday, we are expected to see quite a bit of rainfall. Almost the entire Pacific coast is expected to see at least an inch of rainfall, as well as some further inland regions may see potentially up to an inch and a half to maybe 2 inches, like this one region of Washington. But the primary region of concern that may be fairly concerning as far as flash flooding is going to be across northern California, specifically north of the San Francisco Bay, as we may be able to see upwards of 3 inches to potentially 4 inches of rainfall across northern California, which is definitely going to lead to the risk of flash flooding, and we will have to watch that as far as flash flooding for California. However, keep in mind that this is the amount of total rainfall that we are expected to see between now and the 21st. So this isn't the amount of rainfall that we are expected to see in one day. This is just the amount of rainfall for the total model up to the 21st. So again, by the end of the week, we may potentially see upwards of 3 to 4 inches of rainfall across northern California, which it does definitely look like it may lead to the risk of some flash flooding across northern California. Now that I've told you the weather, please go down to the description and check out the socials for Project Gladiator and join the Discord for any updates on Project Gladiator. If you live in any of the areas I covered for the rest of this week, please stay weather alert for the time being. 2 other channels that I highly suggest you check out, and the links to their channels will be in the description, are Weather Watcher and One Nation Weather. They make amazing weather content. If you notice anything might have been wrong with this forecast, or you'd like to make a suggestion or ask a question, please leave a comment. I do read them and I do reply to them. And again, hopefully I'll be able to see you guys on Sunday with a weekly overlook.